Our next presentation is based on a proposed multifamily residential development, which for purposes of this discussion, shall be discussed in a way which applies in a global context, not within any particular area. That being said, the geographic location of a project is a driver for many of the engineering judgments made by the land development engineer. The early planning for most land development projects is typically done by an architect, or architectural company. We may refer to such individual or company as the architect. Similarly, the land development engineer, either individual civil engineer or civil engineering company, shall be referred to as the engineer. The architect has provided a layout for a series of buildings and an interior road network. The land development engineer looks at the linework as if the building is essentially a kind of black box. Keep in mind that there must also be a structural engineer employed for the residential buildings and other buildings. This is to differentiate between the site engineer and structural engineer. This is quite often two different companies or individuals. Generally, we can assume that the larger the project, the larger and more complex the contractual framework becomes between the various consultants employed. Looking at the project from the land development engineer's perspective, the building is viewed in terms of a building footprint. The entry points and access to the buildings are main considerations of the land development engineer, but building interior is within the architect's scope of work. We will introduce the concept of site line work, which, as the name implies, is a drawing containing only lines and no text. The site line work drawing may be viewed in different styles depending on what we want to emphasize, or de-emphasize, on a particular presentation. The actual drawing file for site line work would appropriately contain different colors for different building features. Two of the most relevant line work features would be the building footprint, and the curb face line work. The curb face generally delineates the paved areas within a site, or at least provides a sense of site layout which we intuitively grasp once we view the site line work drawing. It has become common practice to maintain the site line work drawing as an X-reference which may be loaded onto various other drawings. The goal will be to prevent other users working on the project to inadvertently move or rotate our site line work. If the master site line work drawing is changed, it will automatically be reflected on all drawings which contain that drawing as X-reference. When we X-reference our site line work drawing into another drawing, we can change all the colors of the X-reference drawing to one color so as to recognize it as appearing as an X-reference. The CAD program typically helps us to visualize what is being X-referenced by reducing the brightness of X-referenced content. We can further assist ourselves to recognize X-ref content by changing all colors of one X-reference to a single color, preferably a pastel color. Land development often occurs in phases. Therefore, drawing files of site line work may be separated into multiple files. It is becoming clear that file management is one of the key considerations when creating design for land development projects. In this case, there is a second phase development being considered which influences design of the first construction phase. We show second phase line work as X-reference with different color to help visualize the limits of first and second phase. To summarize this presentation, we have introduced the concept of site line work as separate drawing files to be X-referenced into our drawings as a first step in creating land development site civil design.